adventures of Captain Marvel and the other members of his family, Captain Marvel Jr. and Mary Marvel. I venture to say that One Man's Family, the article in AE by Roy Thomas, inspired hundreds of comic fans to look for old Fawcett comic books featuring the Big Red Cheese, as he was affectionately dubbed. Roy's piece perfectly captured the charm of those Golden Age comics. I soon managed to get my hands on tattered copies of some of those vintage comic books, and thoroughly enjoyed them. Captain Marvel instantly became one of my favorite characters. Though the stories bore no credits, I knew who had written by far the majority of them, because he'd had a long letter in the back of that same issue of Alter Ego. Otto Binder. While books on the lives and work of the best comic book artists are not in short supply, few have been devoted to comic book writers, non-writer artists. A disparity is understandable, given the emphasis on visuals in comics. But why is it so lopsided? Recently, I resolved to do something to remedy that inequity by writing a book about Otto Binder that would delve into his life and career in depth. I was, however, immediately beset by an obstacle. I'd never met the man. He had passed away in 1974. While I intended to focus in large part on his writings, his ideas, and the trajectory of his career, it would seem an incomplete book without conveying something of the man himself. His background, his motivations, his creative methods, his personality, his disappointments, and his triumphs. What sort of person was he? My main avenue was to seek out those who had known him. In that pursuit, I was blessed by the generous cooperation, nay, active participation, of numerous intimates of Otto Binder, his friends, colleagues, and collaborators. Aid of immeasurable importance was also provided by the family of Otto's wife, especially Patricia Turek, and by Jack Binder's daughter, Bonnie Binder-Mundy. Invaluable, too, was the assistance offered by a man who knew Otto Binder for 40 years, legendary DC Comics editor Julius Schwartz. Another valuable resource was the numerous fans whom Binder welcomed into his houses, both in Englewood, New Jersey, and Chestertown, New York. These fans, the recipients of the writer's generosity of time and energy, often had ongoing contact with him, some to the extent that they should be numbered among his friends. He was unfailingly open to his fans. Luckily, some of the interviews Binder gave were tape-recorded, including one in 1973 that had heretofore been lost, as was his panel discussion at the first full-fledged comic book convention in New York in 1965. I've been able to listen to Otto Binder reminisce about the glory days of comics in the 1940s, discuss his views on the potential of the medium, and share his sometimes unorthodox opinions on everything from UFOs to communication with the dead, just like those lucky souls who were able to listen to him in person so many years ago. Then, at the 11th hour, came a wonderful discovery: Otto's manuscript from 1948 for the autobiographical book Memoirs of a Nobody. Completed, unpublished, and apparently forgotten, this charmingly light-hearted look at his life was among Binder's papers bequeathed to SF historian Sam Moskowitz, which were acquired by the Cushing Memorial Library at Texas A&M University upon Moskowitz's passing. I owe a great debt of gratitude to former curator Hal Hall for providing a copy of this memoir, as well as about 50 letters from the correspondence between Otto and his brother Earl during and after their writing partnership. To my knowledge, the contents of these letters have never been published before. Thus, if this book succeeds in evoking the personality and essence of Otto Binder, it's because I came as close to meeting him as possible. One thing I chose not to do was try to relate an all-inclusive history of Fawcett Comics, or their most famous characters, the Marvel family. While Binder's 13-year stint as chief writer for Fawcett is examined in some detail, I was mainly interested in what Otto and Jack Binder contributed to those memorable comic books. But the Binder brothers were only two of the dozens of writers and artists who contributed mightily to the success of Fawcett. For those who want a more complete history of that comic book publisher, I recommend P.C. Hammerlink's excellent Fawcett Companion, Two Morrows Publishing, 2002, and Jim Steranko's The Steranko History of Comics, Volume 2, Supergraphics, 1972. Between those two sources, you'll get the